Hey everyone, you're listening to the Havelockedown. This is our third episode, and today we've brought in a very special guest. We've got with us here Aaran McKenzie, who you might know from While She Sleeps, but who is also a very good friend of ours. Aaron's been working with us on all of our videos, and we kind of consider him as almost a mentor these days. He helps us with loads of stuff, but he has primarily been our videographer. So yeah, with that all said, here's Aaron, here's the rest of Havelock. How's it going, everyone?
Hello,
Hey,
how's it
yeah,
going?
good. Yeah, how are you?
Yeah. How's everyone been getting on in the lockdown the last few weeks since we last spoke?
Same old.
All right.
Have lockdown
Good,
wise, that is.
Yeah.
good, mate. Very busy my end. We've been creating a lot of videos together. Been trying to do it as safely as possible during lockdown. I've been doing that with my own band as well, and I'm just very busy at the moment. I'm also creating a lot of videos for local businesses around Sheffield. So yeah, it's been very busy, but it's nice that there seems to be a light at the end of the tunnel now. By
Yeah.
the time this comes out, we will already be allowed to mix 2 households and 6 people outside, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that
I try and keep up,
I think
but
so.
I believe
Yeah,
that.
I don't know the rules fully.
But so yeah, it's nice, man. And the thought of gigs coming back, just after summer, fills me with so much hope. So
Yeah,
definitely.
can't wait. Just can't
Mm.
wait just for things to be back to normal
yeah,
it's going to be great.
yeah. That's pretty much what's getting me through every day at the moment. Just knowing that we are getting kind of close to something happening. That's
Yeah.
that's all we can hope for at the moment.
Definitely,
And
yeah.
it's kind of crazy to think that like even when we were recording the videos with you for Vampire Eyes, it was kind of just out of lockdown. It was in the middle of lockdowns, but it's like
It
seems
was
so long ago.
we did that when restrictions were a little bit eased, didn't we? We shot that in
Yeah,
November, if I'm not mistaken, and that was
yeah,
just
yeah,
before. No, it was while the tier systems was in place.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we were in tier 3, but we were still allowed to work because like film sets and stuff like that, they're still classed as a workplace. So as long as you socially distance and you use PPE, you're still allowed to be on set and film if you can do it safely. And we thought we could do that. The second video was definitely safe. We were
yeah,
outside in the freezing cold, so
It wasn't
you can't.
safe, but it
yeah,
was
yeah,
safe from COVID.
yeah,
COVID
yeah. It
for
was
sure.
it was
It was
COVID
COVID
before,
safe.
but we probably nearly died. The amount of smoke we inhaled. Um, so yeah,
I do
obviously
apologize for that.
you said obviously you've been working a lot with you've been quite busy recently. Do you want to kind of give us an insight into what you've kind of been working on, or like some of the businesses
Yeah,
and
sure.
stuff you've been working with?
Yeah, sure. So at the beginning of this year, um, so like business promos and shooting for businesses, it's an avenue of filmmaking that I don't do that often, just because I'm usually so busy, with sleeps. I'm the main content guy over there who kind of um, everything to do with the Sleep Society. We brought Barnsley in, obviously, who you're very familiar with, who
Yeah, yeah.
works with me on all your music videos. It's me and him who basically run all the content coming out of the Sleep Society. So we're very busy in that regard. But yeah, at the beginning of this year, I just, like just after all the announcements that were happening with Brexit and, going into another lockdown, like I think it just feels like blow after blow, especially for local businesses.
Mm.
And Brexit in particular is going to fuck so many local businesses. And I just wanted to use my skills that I've acquired over the years just to kind of help them out. And, it's kind of like it goes both ways, because I get to create films that I really enjoy doing. And then in turn, they get an awesome bit of content to put out that hopefully promotes their business. And I've also just started to collaborate with the This Is Sheffield Instagram account, and
Yeah,
basically they're going to be sourcing all the businesses, so it kind of takes something off my plate, so I don't have to go out and find all these businesses to shoot for myself. They do all that, kind of introduce us, set up all the meetings and write the briefs and everything. So yeah, it's kind of like a trifecta of help, everybody helping each other out. I don't take any payments for it, just because, like I said, I think it's very important now more than ever for people to be helping out their local businesses. You know, why go to Starbucks when you can go to your local coffee shop? You know, so that's the kind of thing that's the thing that I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I think I saw you. You did. I've seen your video for Guard Coffee. That place is sick. So
I love.
yeah.
Yeah, it's so good, man. And I know those guys obviously because they're just down the road. So they were the first. Them and Kellen Barber was the first two businesses that I sourced to do a video, and I filmed them at Christmas just before the new year.
Yeah.
And yeah, they came out amazing. And they were the first two that I did. So once I finished those, I took those videos and went to a few other businesses and was like, you know, this is what I can produce for you. Yeah, and I found like it's such a nice thing to do. Like I found the interview aspect of it particularly fulfilling in a way. It's just nice to be able to talk to people and connect on like that kind of level, and just giving them a space to tell their stories, like telling people stories in, you know, and I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet or whatever, but like in a really nice, visually, like emotionally kind of driven story. I think it's just really nice, and especially when they get it back, and you know, and they end up loving what I've done. It is very fulfilling, and it's just so nice to be able to do that for people.
Yeah. I guess there's always that thing when someone's so happy with what you've done that there's that sense of like you've done something good for the world. I guess when that comes
Definitely,
out.
yeah, and it's also like a snapshot of their lives, you know, like they're going to have that for the rest of their lives, and can look back on it in like decades to come and just be like, you know, they might not be still running that same business, or it might have, you know, they might have grown their business to the point where it's unrecognizable and they're doing really well. But either way, they get something to look back on and be like, you know, that was the position we were in at the time. And I think that's just a really nice thing.
Yeah,
and not many people get it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think it's different. Like we've documented our band from the very beginning. So like, it's just second nature to us to always get the camera out and just film everything that's going on around us.
Yeah.
But not many people get that, because obviously, you know, the main aim for their business isn't to deliver content, although that is the way of the world now with social media and stuff. That's how you grow your business. But they're so focused on the products that they're delivering and of the thing that, you know, that surrounds their business, that, you know, they're not going to get like a nice emotional mini documentary about their business. And it is just nice to be able to do that for people.
Yeah, I think like we've always, like, for so many years we've always thought, yeah, we'll make sure we get a camera for when we do a tour, and so we document everything we do, and we never end up with a camera. We're just so bad with like actually. We'll make sure to film stuff. We'll film the first day, and then the rest of the week we'll just forget about. So it was kind of good when we recorded that we actually got Haley to kind of record that, because we would have just forgotten about it. And we just
exactly, yeah. And that's why I tried to make a point of like, that's something that you guys really need to do, especially because I think this EP it's going to be like a benchmark for you guys. You're going to look back on this when you're like a few full lengths deep and just be like, fuck yeah, like I can look back on that, and it's going to be a very like nostalgic thing to be able to do. And just and I think when you like look back at where you've been, it makes you really appreciative of where you're going to go. Do you know what I mean? Because that when you look back at that point, you didn't know where. I mean, and now as we talk about this, you still don't know where this is going to take you. When you look back at it, you're like, oh, we had no fucking idea what was going to happen. So it's just a really nice thing to be able to look back and just to be able to realize like how much you've grown as a person. Because like I look back at, you know, some of our early stuff that we were putting out in 2010, and I would just like, you know, I look back and just think I was so naive back then, man. Do you know what I mean? So it's nice as like a self-reflecting thing as well.
Yeah, I always think it's weird thinking about, obviously, because everything is documented so much now. Like when we're older, there's going to be so much to show. Like, you know, if you have grandkids or whatever, but like there's just like my whole life is on the internet. If that's still around, then I'm just like, here you go. You don't need to hear my stories. This is it.
Yeah, I probably need to do a thorough search on the internet and get rid of a lot of stuff by the time I do.
Yeah.
There's so many interviews out there when I was just a drunk fucking early 20s idiot. Like sometimes I just turn up to interviews drunk and it wasn't good. I would just spout so much shit. Don't go looking for that.
That's the growth side though, isn't it? You can see where you've come from properly then, and like matured through music and through being a person.
Yeah, definitely, man. And I think that helps perpetuate your growth even more, you know, when you've got these things to look back on.
Mm.
Do you find it kind of, is it something you find more challenging when you do those videos because it's obviously something you're not used to, or is it just the fact that it's nice to do? Is it just?
It's not something I'm not necessarily used to. Like, I'm not used to like the protocols and everything, but like, you know, it's still me with my camera in my hand. So yeah, it's different, obviously completely different from doing a music video, but I'm fortunate enough to have been able to have done a lot with a camera in my hand the past 3 or 4 years. And I'm just like, no matter what kind of avenue of filmmaking I step into, because I'm comfortable with the image that I can produce, like it kind of makes me adapt to the situations a lot easier. Whereas, you know, if I was doing this 2-3 years ago, I would have been completely out of my comfort zone. But now I feel like, because I'm just so used to what I do, it's not, I wouldn't say it's not a challenge, because I think I challenge myself constantly with every new thing that I make, and I put my heart and soul into every single thing that I do. So I think challenge is the wrong word to use, but yeah, I guess I am just comfortable with how many hours that I've put in.
Yeah. Okay. I think obviously I think you are just like really good at when you have a vision. I think you're good at making that vision come to life. Like whenever you've given us an idea for something, you always like pull through so well with it. Like, it's always like, oh yeah, that looks great. That is exactly what you said, sort of thing.
Cheers. I appreciate that. And I think that's a huge part of, like, I have to thank you guys a lot for that, because you do put 100% trust in what I'm going to do. Not that you don't have any ideas that you bring to the table, but like it's, you know, it is really nice to be able to flex my creativity and just be like, these guys trust me with what I'm going to do. It's a lot of pressure though as well at the same time. But because we're like pretty deep into this now, we've done quite a few together. I do like have an idea of what you guys also like visually as well. And yeah, and it's just something like, it's just something I've developed. Again, it's just something that I developed over the years. Like, I think everybody's got these ideas, you know, but it's until you develop the skill set to be able to execute the ideas, that's where they flourish even more. Do you know what I mean? When you have this idea and you're like, oh, I know how to pull that off, that enables you to be able to build on it a lot more. Whereas if you have this idea and you try to convey that to somebody else, they've obviously got a different mind to you. You can't share the vision in your head. You can only do it with words, but obviously words are really limited. And it, you know, that's why I feel again, I do feel really privileged to be able to get to the point where I'm at now, because I think now I think more so I'm getting more comfortable with my camera. I'm getting more comfortable with it in my hand and being able to not think about what I'm doing on set in terms of like settings and stuff, because I used to make some terrible mistakes back in the day where I'd be like in the wrong frame rate or like, you know, I'd get the footage back to the computer and I'm just like, it doesn't look as good as I thought it was going to. But that's all a part of the learning curve, isn't it? Like, now I'm in a position where, like, I'm sure I'll look back on the videos that I make now in a few years' time and be like, you know, not that I look down on them, but I'm sure, you know, like, there's always room for growth. So
I think it's the same with everything though. Like, you'll always look back at older stuff and realize it's not as good as what you're doing now, but it's just a learning curve. And I mean, even if you look back at the first few videos you did with us, you can, I mean, we don't know anything about videos or content creation, but if you look at the videos for this EP, they're just on,
it's
like,
a massive jump, isn't it?
They're definitely a big
level.
step up.
Yeah,
that's what I feel like as well. And I do feel like being self-critical is really important for getting better at stuff. You know what I mean? I don't want to be stagnant. I don't want to be like, in a few years' time, I should be looking back at the videos I'm making now and saying I could have done that better. Do you know what I mean? Then that should be that should translate across any type of thing that is, you know, any creativity that, you know, like you guys should be writing better songs for the next album that you produce. Do you know what I mean? Otherwise you're going in the wrong direction.
Otherwise, exactly. I just think, what's the point in carrying on if you just, like, you know what I mean?
Progressively getting worse.
So I think it's a good thing. It's a good and a bad thing. I don't think you need to beat yourself up too much about things, but I do think, you know, I am so self-critical, but I do think it's got me into, you know, I hate talking about myself on this kind of level, but I do think it's like it's got me into the position where I'm able to create some pretty cool visuals.
Yes, I agree that you do.
Cheers. it's hard to be able to like talk about it, but when it's about yourself, you know.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate it.
So did it all just kind of start with filming the sleep stuff when you were just kind of touring or whatever? I mean, obviously, what kind of point was it that you decided you were gonna do content creation as a sort of your own thing aside from sleeps?
It wasn't like a singular moment where it happened.
No.
Just to take you all the way back to the actual beginning. We had Tom Welsh out with us in the very beginning, who filmed all our music videos. That's Matt's brother in the band. He filmed all our music videos. It still does. But he came out on tour with us when we first started getting tours. He came out and we were putting out like regular content like onto YouTube and regular tour diaries. And when we went to the studio for the first time, he was there like creating studio diaries. And I felt like we were really ahead of the curve at that time. Like, obviously we didn't invent tour diaries or studio diaries or anything like that. But like, I felt like back then we were ahead, like we were doing it more so than anybody.
Yeah.
And you know, that grew our success because we were putting out all these like this amazing content, and then obviously that helped Tom out because he was getting recognized for his work. But then it got to a point where obviously we couldn't pay for Tom's time back then, and it got to a point where he can't just do free work forever, right? So there was bands that wanted him to work with him, and you know, Your Demise, Architects, Yumi at Six, he's worked with all those bands, and they could pay him at the time. So he went and worked with them, and you know, and grew his own skill set. And now he's the work that he produces is like on a world-class level. He does adverts for like Google and fucking Adidas and loads of shit.
Does he?
Like,
That's
the list is enormous.
Yeah.
But when we lost him, it kind of left us a couple of years where the content was running a little bit dry. And it felt like, you know, at one point we were ahead of the curve, and then all of a sudden we've almost, I don't want to say we started the trend of everybody, you know, but like, people like Your Demise and everybody in that kind of scene, they were obviously saw Tom's work and wanted to work with him. So we must have enabled that thing to get, you know what I mean? It must have come from somewhere. And we kind of think we were ahead of the curve, and it might have been us posting regularly that might have enabled other people to be like, you know, we should be posting this much as well.
Yeah.
But then when that happened, we were running dry because we didn't have anybody out with us.
Yeah.
So, but it was on the brainwash cycle where we signed to Sony Records. One of the biggest mistakes we've ever made. However, at the time, they sent us out like a care package, and there was like some Sony action cams in there. And I decided to put mine to good use. And I literally, you know, at the time, Instagram were only doing like 15-second videos and stuff like that. It wasn't anything like it is today. But I just put it to good use, and I just like went out with filming on it and like, you know, put it on stage, like filmed like funny backstage things that were happening, and just like put it to good use. And when we launched the You Are We campaign, I still had that camera, but then we had like a Canon like band camera that we had at the time as well.
Yeah.
So I started using that, and I created all the content for the You Are We campaign, which when I look back now is so atrocious. But but you know, like I am really grateful for, like, you know, everybody in the band for giving me room to like develop my skills, because they could have turned around and just said, you know, this is fucking dog shit. We're not posting any of this stuff out. But I don't think any of us knew any better. We were just, you know, we've always been a band with a DIY ethic, and if we can't do something, we'll figure it out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like literally, like fast forward a few years, like I think 3 years after that You Are We campaign, I'm making a music video for you guys, and you guys were my first music video, and and the rest is history, I guess. And it's just been about me just honing my skills, like spending honestly so many hours on YouTube tutorials, like about camera settings and just fucking color grading and all that shit.
Yeah.
Literally like putting in the hours is what's got me to where I am, to be quite honest. And now I'm in a position where I can work with bands to create music videos and work for businesses to create like business promos and many other like avenues of filmmaking that I've gone down. So yeah, it's been a wild ride so far. But like now, like this year, I've been as busy as ever. But I love it.
Yeah, I think at the moment it's more important to be busy than it ever has been as well. Just because it's so hard to be busy for everyone with everything being short. It's good to have things to keep you motivated and keep you moving.
Definitely, yeah, and it's made people more creative, I think, because you have to be creative because nothing's normal at the moment. Nobody can play a show. Do you know what I mean? So it's like you do have to. It has forced people to think on the feet a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's been quite hard. I think we've been lucky. I mean, we're lucky that we have you involved because you are really good at kind of helping us make content and kind of helping us decide what we can post and when to post stuff. But I think for a lot of, especially smaller bands who don't have anyone kind of helping them, who've just got to think of everything themselves and they're making their videos themselves and stuff, I just think it'd be so hard at the moment just to keep that kind of train running. You know what I mean?
Definitely, yeah, definitely, and it is hard. It is hard, and there's no right or wrong per se, but there is certain times to post. There's certain things that you to post that will get you more interaction, and interaction like equals. It doesn't, at one end of the spectrum, it equals success. Like down the line, do you know what I mean? Like this is the tool now. This is the tool for growing our bands, and this is the tool like marketing tools and. There's so many different aspects. I mean, like Instagram now, like you've got reels, you've got stories, you've got IGTV, you've got your normal posts, and you can post stills or GIFs or videos across all of those things. So it's like people who don't have much knowledge in that area or haven't had the experience. Like I've been doing this now for 15 years in While She Sleeps. And it's only because I've been doing it that long that I know kind of what I'm doing. Do you know what I mean? But I certainly didn't at the start. But and this is why I like working with you guys because, it was a little bit of a romantic thing where you were my first music video, and in it, and and down the line, it's turned into me kind of mentoring you in like this managerial kind of role, but it was never meant to be that. It was just meant to be like I was giving you advice on how to post your first music video and like when to post it, how to post it, what to do. Do you know what I mean? And then because I think we connected on a friendship level, that's kind of because I do all your music videos, it's kind of just turned into this thing, which I really enjoy.
Yeah, I think sometimes people get the perception that we're kind of always friends with you, and we're just like using that as like we're like, oh yeah, we're friends with Aaron from Sleeps, but it was literally just we kind of ended up. I don't know how we even ended up working together on the music video, but it was only through that we just kind of started.
It was James Hill. It was his fault.
That was it. We'll blame.
He's to blame for all this.
Yeah, it's James Hill's fault.
Because I think you were giving him a ride home from a show that you were playing at the Rock Bar or something. Oh. And then you guys brought up that you wanted to make music because you had your EP at the time recorded, and you were like, "Oh, we need to make some music videos for it." And then James was like, "Aaron in Sleeps makes content." And then why don't you use him? And then he told me that. And then it was on, I put it to the back of my mind for a while. I was like, it would be a great thing to do. But I wasn't very confident in myself at that time, especially with making music videos, because I've never done it before. And I remember I over-prepared so much for that music video. When I think about it.
Yeah.
But because now I know what I'm looking for in terms of shots. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like then I remember over-filming so much and like using like 30% of the footage. And I think that's why now we can get away with doing shoots like The Arsonist, where we literally had I remember dumping the footage onto my computer and looking at it, and I think there was 14 takes maximum. But because I knew what I needed to shoot to make it work, do you know what I mean? Luckily, we got away with it, and it is a great video.
That faceless shoot was relentless, to be fair. we were shooting for ages, and also
it was nothing compared to our first video, Crows. We shot that over 2 days. And it's just a performance video. We camped out at that site and everything. God. And like woke up the next day, filmed all the next day. It was brutal. Yeah. But because obviously Tom at the time never shot a music video, so he didn't know what he needed to shoot.
Yeah.
And we're in the same boat now, where like the latest video we shot, Nervous, it was so less grueling than what a lot of shoots have been, and that's just because Tom knows what to get.
Yeah. And the video for that looks amazing. So
cheers, appreciate it.
Yeah,
there's a lot of work.
Okay, so we've talked quite a bit about the videography side, but I guess one of the main things that we probably should talk about, because it'd be a bit stupid if we didn't, is how you first got into music. I guess most people will probably know you from that side, so just an overview.
Yeah, so I got into music, I guess like alternative music. I got into it when I was like 12, 13 years old. And I got into it because I was a big wrestling fan. So I was like, I've been a big wrestling fan since I was a kid. And when I was like 11 to 12, I think that was like round about the Attitude Era. And that's when wrestlers, everything kind of had, it was called the Attitude Era. So everything had a bit more pizzazz to it, and it was a bit more X-rated. So along with that, wrestlers would have songs that they would walk down. What's it called? Is it an aisle?
Yeah,
is it an aisle?
Just like
it just felt wrong to call it an aisle. Then it just felt like that's
runway.
Well, whatever they walk down, they would have like heavier side of music, like as their entrance music. Like Triple H had like Motorhead and shit like that, and
they loved like new metal and stuff as well, didn't they?
Like
exactly,
so Bridge and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so like when I remember very specifically the first time that the Undertaker made a comeback as the American Badass, and he came out to "Rolling" by Limp Bizkit. Little did I know that would change the course of my life forever. Like I come from like a village where there's like literally zero at the time. There was literally zero alternative people and nobody who really listened to rock music. So my world was completely sheltered like my entire life to that whole like side of music. And when I heard like this music, like like Limp Bizkit had a song that had 46 fucks in the song or something. You know what I mean? Like at 12, 13 years old, that absolutely blew my mind. Do you know what I mean? And because I like wanted to be a footballer before I started listening to alternative music and rock music. Like literally, and rock music just grabbed me by the scruff of the neck and was just like, this way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that was the same sort of thing with me. I think I was like, oh, I want to do sports, and then I was like, no, I want to be in a band.
Yeah, and I think what appealed to me about it was, aside from the fact that there was swearing in songs, it was like the first time where I felt like I could take my life in like my own direction, and that felt good. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it felt like the first time where I guess it was the first time that I felt any form of rebellion in my mindset, and I was like, I don't have to do anything anybody else does, and I just in the whole kind of community of like the rock world just appealed to me, and and that was how I got into rock music, I guess. And then my taste developed over the years. At first it was new metal, like bands like Limp Bizkit, Linkin Park. Still Linkin Park. They're unquestionably like Hybrid Theory. Like literally, I think so many bands in our generation were born because they got into that music, that album in particular. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it was like, I remember pop punk was massive in my life. So I got into new metal, and then I was getting into the heavier side of new metal, like Slipknot and stuff like that. And then it for some reason, like overnight, I was just like, I like pop punk now, and I love Blink-182, Sum 41, all that kind of stuff. And then it started getting heavier again, and I remember like I think Funeral for a Friend was that turning point band where I was like, oh, these kind of still sound like the bands I was listening to, like Taking Back Sunday and stuff, but they're screaming. And that was kind of that was the gateway for me. And after Funeral for a Friend, that was it. Do you know what I mean? Got into like metalcore, like bands like As I Lay Dying, Still Remains, and all that side of rock music. And that was kind of how I met everybody in the band, I guess. I met Sean through skateboarding, our mutual love through skateboarding, and we also lived in the same village. He was literally like a stone's throw around the corner. I think at one point he lived in 2 places in the village, and at one point he lived where like we could see each other's houses. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, so I've known Sean forever, and he knew Matt, and then and we just all got into the same music, and we hung around with each other because of that, I guess. And then we formed. Well, they formed Sleeps. I was in a separate band at the time, and because they already had a bass player, but I slowly edged him out because he started like to not turn up to practice. So I was just like, I can do this.
Yeah. This
but like, you know, he was just one of those things where their friendship kind of grew apart, and I was just like, I'm around all the time, I can do this. But I'm a guitarist. Initially, that was my first love. Picked up guitar when I was like 13, 14 years old, and was like the lead guitarist in quite a few bands before Sleeps. And I only picked up bass because that was the only position available. But then after that, absolutely fell in love with playing bass, and joined While She Sleeps. We had a singer called Jordan Widdowson for about 3 years. Still a really good friend. Still see him on a regular basis. Well, not the past year anyway, but before then I saw him quite regularly. And then we did a show in Doncaster, and Loz's old band called, what were they called at the time? They had a few names. I think they were Fail to Reason at the time. And and we just hung out together after that show, and they came back to the barn, I believe, on that first night. And the barn was our old practice space at Matt's dad's old house. And then they came there, and we just like smoked a bunch of weed and became really good friends. And then we just started booking shows together after that. Yeah. And then 3 years later, when we got offered like our first ever official tour with a band called Ignominious Incarceration. Crazy name, but Ignominious Incarceration. I think it's a character from Final Fantasy.
Okay.
Who is incarcerated.
Yeah.
So they took us out, and the drummer from that band, who's still a really good friend of ours, he did the trippy video for You Are All You Need, our last single. So he's still a really good friend.
That's cool.
But we were all like working jobs and in college at the time, and we were just like, you know, are we going to do this or not? Like, I don't think another opportunity is going to come along. You know, if we don't take it up now, I think we'll be kicking ourselves. So we did. We quit everything. But Jordan at the time, who was our singer, he had a really good job, and he didn't want to give it up, and he wanted a more stable life, I guess. Is the way you could put it. And so it was an emotional goodbye with him. And then the first person we called was Loz, and he always wanted to. He was always like a sixth member of the band. You know what I mean? And he joined. And I remember that when Loz quit his job, he was working at a school, and we picked him up the day that he quit his job. And he was like he was a teacher for people in the school who had a little like mental disabilities. And but he got in the van. He had to wear a uniform, and he got in the van, ripped the uniform off, and was like, "Let's fucking go." Do you know what I mean? And we like literally all moved in the barn together. It's so bad. It was so bad for us. I think we fucking, you know, we drank a lot back then. We moved in the barn literally a week or two later, and wrote The North Stands for Nothing in what would we planned for it to be a month, but it took 3 months because we were just getting hammered the whole time. So that's the story of Sleeps. And then obviously off the back of North Stands for Nothing, we were just it was almost in the position that you guys are in now. Do you know what I mean? Like North Stands for Nothing, we called it a mini album. It was an EP. Do you know what I mean? It was 7 songs with 5 full length songs with like 2 interludes or whatever. So it was an EP. But we just went out touring off the back of that, and just took ourselves out on tour, just got on whatever show we could, got our own van, headed out to Europe, and it's been a non-stop hustle until literally now, talking to you guys. Like it's an endless hustle. Like
It got-
when you think, oh, we've made it, that's always when the real work starts.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? 'Cause-
I always look at you guys, and that's when I always think like there is no like the bigger you get, the harder it seems, the harder you have to work.
completely, yeah. Otherwise, you need to push yourself past that precipice. Do you know what I mean? You need to. Otherwise, you're not gonna push forwards. You need to put in the hard work. Because you can't expect to put in the same amount of work that you put in like a year ago. Like that's unfortunately the way it goes. The more success comes with a bigger workload,
Yeah,
and that's just the way it is. But if you have a passion for it, it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? You enjoy doing
Definitely.
it. So yeah,
yeah.
that's kind of the most concise biog that I can give you.
Yeah, I'm sure there's like obviously like so much more to be said, but
Oh yeah.
yeah.
What's the barn, by the way? Is that just
The barn was like an extension to Matt's dad's old house. Like he had a house in Nether Langworth, and there was literally a barn building attached to it. But the loft of the barn was converted into like a room, and we turned that into a band room, and that's where we we were there 24/7. Just we were just there together all the time. Like
Yeah.
we
Sounds
literally
like a
lived
dream.
there. We literally lived there for like 3 months.
That's sick though.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think we worked out when we look back, like at how much we recorded, like per day, the equivalent of how much we recorded per day. I think it was 12 seconds. So it was it was because we had other focuses at the time. We were honestly the typical I don't know if it's because of like our background of like coming from like working men's villages. You know what I mean? But we definitely was drenched in that mentality of just binge drinking. We just came from that. Do you know what I mean? So we definitely did that a lot.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily like rare in bands, to be honest, because a lot of the people in sort of like alternative music do come from like that sort of working class like villages and stuff like that, because it's music that sort of speaks to them on the level that they're at.
Definitely, yeah. So... and it's like that's the background of like of coming from the UK, and especially like in the northern parts of UK. It's just what you do. It's part of growing up is that you just go out and you drink. But then throwing yourself at such a young age, throwing yourself with that mindset into another culture that is like it glamorizes like drink and drugs. You know what I mean? We were just like we were thrown headfirst into it completely.
I'll ask a slightly less sad question, I guess. Like, I don't know. It's fine to talk about like those sorts of things, but it's nice to remind yourself of like all the less negative sides of it.
It wasn't all negative by any means. We had a fucking good time. You know what I mean? We had a very good time. But yeah, it's not something you can do forever. That's all I'll say.
No, definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
I guess you sort of like you appreciate the time that you did it, but it's not something that you would want to carry on now.
Absolutely, yeah. I've got it out of my system. Yeah. I don't want to continue that life into my 30s. Yeah. Like honestly, like being productive and working, that's my new partying. And just becoming a better version of myself. And just because I think when you are thrown into like head first, like I said, a culture that is glamorizing drink and drugs, it's hard for you. Like, you know, we were at a place and a time in our lives where we were young adults and we were still developing. You know what I mean? Our brains were still developing. So, it's something that definitely has a backlash a little bit later on. So yeah, like, but you've got to sort that out, and that's what I'm in the midst of trying to do.
Yeah, it's not a particularly lifestyle that comes hand in hand with like longevity in terms of like physical and also like
absolutely not. Unless you want to be that like toothless guy, like,
exactly,
propped up at a bar in your 50s. Do you know what I mean? It's not who I want to be.
And if you wanted like Oh yeah, as a professional musician as well, you mean you're just not going to get anything done, and you won't look good at any point doing it. So
Absolutely, yeah,
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 it is the right mentality to have, obviously.
definitely, yeah. I think it's men don't really open up about their emotions anyway, and so I think when you're masking all your emotions as a young man going into adulthood, it starts getting very hard to undo. And I found that's like the pickle that I got in, because when I decided to stop drinking because of, like you said, because of the lack of longevity that comes with that kind of lifestyle, there were a lot of cracks in my mental health started to show. But I think it was necessary. I've had to work through it because it's a necessity for just growing as a person.
Yeah, I think a lot of bands as well. A lot of bands do kind of will when on their kind of road to getting big. The kind of start of that is when they're at a age where they're growing so much. Like when they're just kind
Definitely.
of getting into adulthood. So many
Yeah.
bands get big at that sort of stage and don't have they don't grow up in other cultures. They grow up, like you said, in the just partying, drinking every night sort of culture, and they have a different, obviously, bringing up as other people do.
Yeah, definitely. And because it's such a fucking roller coaster ride, man. Do you know what I mean? Like especially when like the trajectory from North Stands for Nothing to This Is the Six coming out and playing like Electric Ballroom off the back of This Is the Six coming out is like 2 years.
Yeah.
So that was a fucking roller coaster of a ride, and it was also almost like a coping mechanism because if I wasn't doing that, I would have. It's just so crazy. You can't comprehend what's happening. So it's totally like a coping mechanism. But at the same time, I think, like I said, because of the culture that in our background that we come from, it doesn't really teach us that was the only way that we knew how to deal with it.
Yeah.
So
I guess this brings us really nicely round to the new video and most importantly the advert that sort of came alongside it. It didn't start off as an advert, but I saw yesterday that it started hitting terrestrial and national TV. So do you want to talk a bit about the concept behind Nervous and how that was to film and what sort of brought that out as a mini project before the song was released?
Sure, yeah. It was kind of just like a marketing tool, I guess, is the wrong thing to say, because what the main point behind Nervous was, Nervous is a blunt look at mental health, and it's a look at, in particular, of Sean's struggles. That it's a very personal song to Sean, but we've all had mental health issues in the band, so it's something that's very close to our hearts. And so we were just like, we need to use this opportunity to like use Nervous as a marketing tool to spread awareness of mental health issues, because it is stigmatized completely, especially in the UK, and especially in men in the UK. We get told to have a stiff upper lip and to not
100%.
talk about our feelings. And so we obviously, like we've shot many adverts before in the past, and I wanted to approach this advert in the sense of almost like holding like a group therapy session among people and getting people just to talk about their problems and using our platform to kind of like elevate their voices to talk about their problems. And it was really hard. It was really hard to do. Like, it was really hard to conduct that interview because, I'm not a therapist. I'm not somebody who's always emotionally available for other people's problems because I'm working on my own. But I thought it was something very important to do. And it was very emotionally taxing, but also a cathartic experience at the same time. I remember coming away from doing those interviews and like crying, like, just to be quite honest, because it felt like such a good thing to do. We always want to do our part to kind of make the world a better place, I guess. But just to know, like, not only is that gonna help people if they see this advert, it, like every little thing that you see, do, and experience changes the course of your life. Do you know what I mean? So somebody could have seen that advert and it could have possibly been the difference between life and death for them. In fact, I know it has, because I've had people message me about it saying, literally, I'm in tears. Like, I'm in such a bad place and I don't know what to do with myself. And the fact that we're opening up this conversation for people to just be more open about how they feel. Like, I think it's crazy that why is it the social convention to literally, like, when you greet each other and you ask how somebody's doing, and why, you know, if that person's not doing okay, why, you know, the general response is like, oh yeah, I'm fine, how are you? But do you know what I mean? Like, but why is that the norm? Why we're not more open to talking to each other? Because, like, imagine if you had like a lot of people in the room, new people who've never met each other, how many of those would be anxious and nervous around those people, but thinking that they're the only people who are experiencing that? So I think that's crazy, because like we think it's the thing that separates us, but it's the thing that unites us. So this nervous is such an important thing that's close to our hearts, and you know, the whole thing has just been an emotional roller coaster. But to see it connecting with so many people, because you know, the fact that when you don't really say I'm nervous in confidence, do you? Like, you never admit it to anybody. But the fact that there are lyrics in a song, and hopefully sometime down the line there's going to be thousands of people screaming those words, I'm nervous, it almost is breaking down a barrier in itself, isn't it? Because you know, we all know what the energy is like at a show. Like, words summon feelings and music evokes emotion. So like, we're getting thousands of people to say I'm nervous, it's almost like bringing down that barrier in an instant. And and hopefully it will have a ripple effect. We just want to be a part of the greater good. And I think now more than ever, off the back of, and still being in a lockdown where it's affecting people's mental health so much, I know it's certainly affected mine. I think we need to be open with each other more than ever.
And I think especially bringing down those barriers, not just for the general public, but also there's a bit on it where there's a pharmacist talking about like handing out sertraline like it's nobody's business. And whilst that is something that helps some people, there's almost this reaction by doctors to just do the thing that they think is gonna immediately solve the problem. And for a lot of people, something like that is just like a band-aid. For some people, that's what they need, and to have that solves everything that they needed. But like,
that's true,
but being able to like raise this conversation towards like people that might be prescribing things like that, or like suggesting, oh, have you tried sports if you mention that you're feeling like anxious and stressed and depressed, because I know that I've been on the receiving end of that. It's just important to like to sort of say like this is not the only way to solve that, and the only way that we're gonna discover how to solve that amongst everyone is if everybody actually has a conversation about it.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, humans are amazingly complex creatures, and emotions are this new thing. I mean, if you look in terms of the age of the universe and the age of Earth in itself, you know, like, being self-aware of your emotions is a very new thing, and it's a very difficult process. Do you know what I mean? And dealing with it is a very new human problem to try and overcome, and it's not a one-size-fits-all. Like, I think you're completely right. With some people, antidepressants are just going to be a band-aid on the problem, but I do think some people have a true chemical imbalance in their brain, where it's like just to say to that person, if you get out and go and do some exercise, you know what I mean, I don't think it's going to fix their problem. But it's not like a one size fits all at all.
Not.
And but I think the main issue is that we're not talking to each other about it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if you have that conversation, then you become aware of all of the different ways that you can get help, and it's not just like you're limited to either, you know, have medication, go do sports, or go to a therapist. Like, there's definitely other ways to do it besides those three. And like you say, like, for some people, that's all they need to fix it, and that's brilliant. But just opening it out and getting everybody involved. We've all got such different brains, like, obviously.
Definitely, yeah. And it was something that I was, before I went through it myself, I wasn't empathetic towards it. I was, obviously, when I saw people who was going through it, who were close to me, I tried to be there for them. But I think until you go through it yourself, you can never really truly understand what it's like for anybody else. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about it now. And I think that's why all of us in the band are so passionate about it, because we've all experienced it, like, on so many different levels. And if we're not using our platform to spread that awareness. You know, like I try to think about like, what am I going to tell my future kids? What did I do when the world was in crisis and I had a voice that would speak to a lot of people? What am I going to say to them? You know, and we need to use it for good.
Yeah, and I've seen that like
As cliche and as cheesy as that sounds, that is literally like, do you know what I mean?
think
Like
it's
that's the main aim. That's what...
though, and it's
With great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, Uncle Ben said it best, didn't he?
Yeah.
But it's totally true though. Like with the Sleep Society stuff. Well, I mean, we can talk more about that in a second. But the mental health like masterclass, I guess is the right word. The stuff that Sean's been doing on the Instagram Live and like I saw there was a bigger one that you did just to launch the whole thing. That sort of thing and bringing that sort of community amongst the people that are interested in you and interested in your music is so powerful. And for other bands to see that, and for other like just everybody in the music industry to see that, it's actually like it gives me goosebumps to think that's even possible.
Yeah, definitely, man. And you know, like we've created such a cool community inside the Sleep Society. Before we even launched anything to do with Nervous, the weekend before we had a big Zoom hangout with all, like most of the Sleep Society members who are in the Revolution tier. And it was basically like the theme of it was like Nervous, and it was almost like a group therapy session. And we were just giving people a safe space to like open up about their problems. And some people, it was the first time that they were, I think the main thing that, like, you know, the mental health epidemic is so big and so vast is because I don't think people can identify it as mental health problems. They just think it's just something they're going through. So they can't identify that it's anxiety or like a big traumatic experience that they've maybe not digested very well and they've bottled up. Do you know what I mean? And some people in the society, it was the first time that they opened up about a lot of their stuff, and it was so moving to like hear some of their stories. Some people had absolutely tragic stories, and you know, like being able to give people that safe space after that, and you know, and I opened up to them about a lot of the stuff that I've been through, and before you talk about this stuff, like there was one line in the Nervous advert that a very lovely gentleman, Winston, said. That was the end quote, is that after feeling nervous comes euphoria, both powerful emotions to be embraced. And it's like, you know, it seems so daunting to be able to talk about these things. But like after that Zoom chat that I had with everybody, I was honestly on a high for hours. I was just like, that felt so fucking good to open up to people. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's the issue. Again, like we're not talking to each other. And I also think it's this thing that is in society, this stupid notion that happiness is the only kind of emotion that we should be accepting of. You know, I think we need to understand that we're complex creatures with a wide variety of emotions. And if you only, you know, and it's the yin and yang of life, isn't it? How can you, if you're perpetually happy, you're not going to know what happiness feels like. So I think the times when you're going through a low, it'll have a lot less traction if you just accept it and just know that it'll pass, because that's the state of the universe. Nothing will last forever. It will change at some point. The universe is in an ever changing state. So I think people need to understand that, you know, and I think that's a message that Sean's really getting out there, because he really overcome what he went through by like some Eastern teachings and like in understanding that philosophy that, you know, there's ups and downs in life, but if you don't attach yourself to either of them so wholly, you know, and just understand that both will come at some point or other, then I think we would have a lot of a more healthy mindset in society.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time you see with like, especially when you see a lot of celebrity sort of like when they've kind of committed like suicide or anything, and it's obviously they've had such terrible mental health. A lot of those celebrities have always seemed so bubbly and happy.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like Robin Williams.
Yeah, exactly.
I was
Like showing that face all the time actually is more tiring than being able to just say I'm not well at the moment, I'm not happy. But when you've got to say you're happy all the time, going back and then like when you're not happy underneath, it's just tiring you out and wearing your own ability to carry on. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, man. Yeah. I think it's so important to talk about and for people to, because depression does disguise itself. It hides behind a smile, and like I said at the beginning, like it's just important, man. It's just important to talk to each other, and if if somebody asks you how you're doing, like I think we need to start being comfortable with saying how we truly feel, because sometimes a lot of what gives me anxiety about going out into society if I'm not feeling good is the fact that I've got to put on a front. So I think you're completely right. And a lot of the times, if I asked somebody how they were doing and they were to say, you know what, I'm not feeling great, I'd be like so relieved and be like, fucking hell, you know what, me neither. Shall we talk about it? Do you know what I mean? So why isn't that the norm? Why do we have to float on the surface talking about bullshit?
Yeah.
That's what I want to know.
I agree.
That's a good effort to have there.
Instead, we just do pointless small talk.
Exactly.
All the time.
So I'm glad we touched upon this in this podcast, because I do think it's important to be talking about.
Yeah.
And Hope, you asked me about both aspects there. You was like, talked about you asked me to talk about the advert, and the song, and the video that came with the song. But I think this part of it is more important. This is why I've delved into this a little bit, because that was the whole point of it. The video is cool itself, yes. Like we put a lot of effort into it, and it's fucking, and like massive shout out to Simon Neil, who took his time to be a part of it. So it was a lot of effort, and I think it, we try to convey that message through the imagery. We try to make it symbolic in the fact that we're being us watching ourselves on a screen. We're trying to be self-reflective. We're trying to show that. We're trying to show that, and hopefully other people can see we're doing that and take that message on themselves.
Yeah, those shots look wild, like with the big screen and everything. It was massive.
Well, originally it was going to be, we shot those shots in the warehouse. I don't know if you recognized it was the same warehouse as the Sleep Society video.
Yeah, I'd noticed that, to be fair.
But we originally, it was just going to be this arty marketing video for the Sleep Society. But then once we watched the footage back, and I think it was Sean who suggested, we needed to come up with a concept and a video for Nervous. And Sean was just like, we've shot like a fucking music video quality, like we've shot this footage already. We've got like half a music video here. So why don't we make a go down this path and, use these screens as a way to like show that we're self-reflecting, and then once we made that decision to go down that road, we decided to get 2 more locations and add a little bit of performance into it, because I think we did need that in the video too, because although everyone's saying it is like a softer side to us, I do think it hits hard at the same time. So I think it needed that aspect to it as well with the performance.
Yeah, I mean, it's a softer side of you, but it is definitely a part of you. It's still there.
Yeah, I mean, we wrote it, so it has to be by definition.
Yeah.
What's it been like, Aaron? Obviously, you've worked with Simon Neil on this song, and then I think another one of the songs, I'm not sure which one it is. You've worked with Derek Wibley from Sum 41. What's it been like working?
I'm so jealous about that, by the way.
Yeah, you are.
Absolutely mind blowing, to be quite honest. They've both been just really nice to work with. Really nice people. The saying is you never want to meet your heroes, because if they turn out to be a dick, then so much of your life has been lost idolizing these people. And I definitely fucking idolized Sum 41 at one part of my life. They shaped me in many ways, because watching their DVDs as like a young teenager, I was just like, that made me want to be in a band, like be on a tour bus and play live and just spend my life having a good time with my mates. That's what I wanted to do. So to get to work with Derek was absolutely mind blowing. And he delivered, I think, on this song. You haven't heard it yet, but trust me, it's great.
No, I'm looking forward to hearing it.
I'm so excited to hear that.
It's really good, man. And again, Simon, I was a massive fan of Biffy Clyro, still am. And I remember before I quit my job, my current job, I had a terrible job. I was working at a skip place, sorting out, like, on a conveyor belt, sorting out all the materials that came in a skip. It was terrible, like soul destroying. But we had, and me and Sean worked there, and we had the radio on all the time. And Biffy Clyro got played on the radio almost constantly when Mountains was out. So both have been very full circle moments. And yeah, like I said, just both of them have just been amazing to work with. You can really tell that they've had many years in the industry, because they've really perfected their art and what they do. And to be able to bring that into something that we've done, in my opinion, our best work yet. And I know that's so cliche to say, oh, our new album's our best work yet, and it's a progression from the last stuff, but I genuinely do think that it is. I couldn't be happier. They both really killed it.
From what I've heard, oh god, sorry, go on.
I was going to say, how did you approach them? Like, how did the collaboration kind of form initially?
So we were just like putting the feelers out for many people to guest on this album. We've always been quite precious about it, but then with this album, we've just been like, fuck it, let's just see what we can do and see who we can get. And so Simon Neil, we got him through L Works, L Loz's brother. He tour managed Frank Carter and the Rattlesnakes for a long time, and they toured with Biffy Clyro at one bit, or did a few shows with them, and got really good friends. So we got a contact through him.
They've just re-announced that show, haven't they? I think Frank Carter is doing another show with Biffy.
They are, yeah, with Youngblood. Yeah, I saw that, yeah. So they're doing that. They've played with them quite a few times. So that's how that facilitated the whole thing, and it was, couldn't thank him anymore. But it was also, it turns out like Simon was a fan of the band for many years, because we went on tour with Bullet for My Valentine, and their lighting guy was like, I also do lights for Biffy, and he's a massive fan of you guys. So it's always been at the back of our minds for a couple of albums now to ask him. But on this one, like I said, we were going to be relentless with the asking of people to get on our album. So so that's how that came about. The Derek one came about through James Hill, the legend who is James Hill again, because I think James was on tour with them. So I don't actually know the story, so I'm going to butcher it probably, but I think James knew the tour manager. James was doing sound for a band who was on tour with Sum 41, and the tour manager from them and the tour manager of Sum 41 were really good friends. So it was very many people removed, but down the line we got to Derek's manager. And at first it didn't look like it was going to happen, because I think Derek was having a baby at the time, and that's very stressful. So at first he turned it down, and he was like, I'm sorry guys, like this is amazing, but I think he was like having a baby and freaking out and just being like, I'm not going to have time.
Yeah, fair enough.
But then once the baby was born, he came back and was like, am I too late for this? Because I'd really love to still be a part of it. And we were just like, tried to play it off dead casual and that, but inside we were like, oh my God. When we finally got those stems through of his vocals, everyone were losing their shit. It was crazy.
That's really cool, man.
I wouldn't have been able to hold it in on a phone call to Derek Whibley.
Dude, yeah, we had so we were shooting Sleep Society, that music video, and we had a call with him, because when Derek asks you to take a call, you're not going to be like,
you take the call.
You're like, not like, oh, can you change it? We've actually got a music video. We were like, we stopped like doing takes like 15 minutes before that call, went in a quiet little room. He was on loudspeaker to Sean and Matt were the only people speaking, and everyone else were just like hands around their mouths, just being like, oh, I'm probably really like outing us here, but like, yeah, we were very fangirling big time.
Yeah,
but yeah, it was both of them have performed so well, and yeah, really, really happy.
Are we allowed to ask who you were putting your feelers out to? Like, what kind of other vocalists are you to work with and stuff like that?
We asked Caleb from Beartooth. It was. I think he'll probably. I don't know if we'll end up working together in the future. But he seemed up for it, but it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
There were a few others. I think we asked so many people. Honestly, I couldn't even reel them off.
No.
And yeah, so yeah, I know Caleb from Beartooth was one, but so
Yeah.
maybe that'll happen in the future. Maybe it
But
won't.
I mean, you got good results anyway. You got
Yeah,
some of
definitely.
the big hitters there.
Oh,
Yes.
definitely. Yeah, I'm not complaining at all.
No.
So,
Yeah, so we were gonna just we touched on it a bit, but because obviously through this release now, or like prior to, you did the Sleep Society stuff, and obviously that when that music video came out, and you had the like the press release video prior, which was obviously amazing. What
Yeah.
was like the process in terms of coming
a
up with
couple
the
of
idea
Havelocks
of that?
involved in that
'Cause,
as well.
yeah, there were. What was like
Cameos.
Yeah.
because you're like obviously the first band to do anything like this, and obviously you might set a trend for other people to do similar things, but how did that come about, and what was the thinking?
No, I don't want to say we were the first band to do it, because we definitely weren't, but I think we were the first band to kind of market it like this could be an alternative for the current music industry, because I don't want to say the music industry is completely on its arse, because I think there's a lot of good people out there who still have a genuine passion for lifting bands up into the position where they can connect with people and help them grow. But I do think, and we've experienced it, I do think there's a lot of people who get into the music industry for the wrong reasons, and there's a lot of snakes in the grass. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And I think the problem is that it's a dated system that doesn't really serve the paradigm of like the streaming service world. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying streaming services are bad. I'm not saying they're a bad thing at all. And they help so many bands like Havelocke and While She Sleeps alike, you know, and it gets bands out there to so many people. But I think the current system is failing to adapt to this new way of operating. So the Sleep Society is just our version of trying to adapt to that, because, you know, we've got so many fans who are behind us, and we have been very fortunate to grow our fan base over the years. And it all started with the You Are We campaign, I guess, because we had such a bad experience. Like I was saying earlier, brainwashed signing to Sony was one of the biggest mistakes we made. But I mean, you know, I don't want to dwell on it, because it's probably set us off on the path that we're on now. But we didn't feel like we were being served very well. We felt very much like small fish in a big pond when it came to Sony. They literally forgot we were on the record label at one point.
God.
And it was a massive shambles. So, you know, Kickstarters and Pledge Music, they were kicking off at the time. So we were like, we want to go down this route, and it means that we don't get in debt to a label. You're not going to give us an advance that we're going to have to pay off with interest, and, you know, we're not going to have to do any of that. And we asked our fans if, you know, we're relying on you to make this possible, and if you care about this band, then invest in this band in a way, you know. But so You Are We was such a great model, and it elevated our band into a place where I don't think we would have gained as much success like we did if it wasn't for that, because it was such a big talking point at the time. We had so much press because of it and stuff. And then, you know, on So What record, we kind of went back to an older model. We didn't, you know, we're not deceiving people. We're not just like saying, oh, we're doing this thing and we don't believe in the music industry, then go straight back to a label. That wasn't it at all. We actually found a label, Span Farm Records, who, you know, they approached us and they said, we don't want to mess with the vibes of that you guys have created. We, you know, the Sleeps Brothers branding will be pushed at the forefront of everything. But we just want to help you reach more people. So we did that on the So What record. It just didn't feel as special. You know, So What was a great record and I love it, but and it probably came with a lot of breakdowns that everybody was having at the time. That was kind of the time when I talk about like most of us going through hardships. That was around about the time when that happened, and we've put that on raw display on the documentary that we put out. But so, you know, we were just like, what do we do for this next record after this? Because we don't want to do a similar thing. And, you know, because the vibes of the You Are We campaign went so well, we were just like, how can we do that, but make it a sustainable thing and just keep, you know, and get people to invest in this band, not just a one-time thing, but to keep it going. And since You Are We, Patreon has become a massive platform. And it's really big for like YouTubers and podcasters and stuff like that. But we didn't see many bands doing it, particularly in our genre of music. So we were just like, why not? Why not use that
Yeah.
platform and get people to sign up? We give out, you know, we feel like we've gained so much knowledge over the years. We wanted, and I think it's because like we're very typically northern people as well, where we want to make sure we're giving people a lot for their money. We didn't want to. We wanted it to be the opposite of a scam. So it was like, you know, if we're going to do this, we need to, like, if people are paying us monthly, we want to create a community where we're offering our advice. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe it could be a thing where, you know, bands use it as kind of like a model for themselves and use the tutorials that we do within the society as like, maybe they can skip stages 1 and 2 and not make the same mistakes we made. You know what I mean? And it worked fucking so well, man. And I'm so proud of it. Like the community that we've created in there as well. Like I've never been closer to our main core like fan base, and it's so good. Like we know most of them by first name now. And
That's
yeah,
cool.
I couldn't have asked for it to go any better.
Is it nice having that as like a while you're not performing and recording, like almost as like a full-time job as what you do extra? Does it take up a lot of time doing? Obviously, you do the videography stuff. Does that take up a lot, and you have to film the other guys doing their segments?
Yes,
music?
yes is the short answer to that. Like it's it's a very time-consuming thing. We've created a job on top of the band, but you know, it's what we love doing, and we wouldn't do it if we didn't think we had the time or energy for it. But like, you know, along with this Nervous release, like it doesn't stop in the society, and like I said, we very want to make sure that people are getting their money's worth. So that's just, we have a meeting once a week and we decide what's going into society. It's all very well orchestrated, and we plan it out, what's going out, and what tiers get what. And that's why, like, particularly when we release a Nervous, or whenever we release a single, that's such a big job in itself that, you know, like we've got 2 massive jobs on our hands when something like that rolls around. So yeah, it was very difficult, but yeah, it's what I love to, and I honestly don't think our band, I mean, we would have survived because we wouldn't have let it go under, but last year was obviously fucking hard for everybody, and we planned to do the Sleep Society before COVID-19 was a thing, but I think it was definitely the silver lining to our last year, because it came, we released it at the perfect time, because if we didn't do that, I don't know what we would have done. Like it would have been very difficult for us to just, you know, to maintain our own life, because we don't do anything else. We put so much effort into the band, you know, we pay ourselves a wage from this, and it's like, if we had to like stop and go and do other jobs and take our attention away from While She Sleeps, it would directly affect that. Do you know what I mean? And also we wouldn't have had the amount of breathing space to just record the album in the first place. And I think the Sleep Society has almost breathed life into the album. And I think it's our best work yet. So yeah, and it's definitely, and it's so good for morale. Do you know what I mean? Like there's so many people on there, and we've got our own Discord. I know I said at the start of this thing, I feel like such a granddad when it comes to Discord, and it scares me. But there's literally people in our Discord community that's on there like constantly, and they like always talking with each other. And you know, there's a few mental health groups now that people like talk to each other in.
That's great.
That's cool.
Yeah, so you know, it's an outlet for a lot of people, and it's not only for our fans, it's for ourselves as well. It helps my mental health having that.
Yeah, I think you also, like in the video for Sleep Society, you kind of mentioned it being sort of setting a precedent for other bands as well, and I've definitely seen a couple of bands since then doing similar sort of projects, whether that was off the back of that or if that was something they were going to do anyway. I definitely think it's a good thing for different bands to kind of latch onto and do their own little communities, because obviously the Sleeps community is quite large, but there's still going to be big parts of the like society that don't get caught by that and have other places where they'll belong.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. But I think it's definitely something that most bands should do. Why not? Like, yeah, like if there are people out there who give a fuck about your band, why do they have to go through a middleman to give you some? Not, I don't want to break it down to like its lowest common denominator of money, but like, you know, that you can't travel the world for free, unfortunately. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, so like, why should there be somebody in the middle there just being like, taking a cut. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so, and I think, you know, labels do serve their purpose. Obviously, I'm not bad mouthing them, but I think this could be a lifeline for so many bands, because I've witnessed so many bands who we grew up with just drop like flies over the years, and it's not because they want to. It's probably because they signed a really shitty deal and they can't get out of it, and they don't see any way out of it. So they have to make that heartbreaking decision to not do it anymore, which is so shit. Like, why is that the way?
Yeah, some of like the major bands you've seen, I think like it was like A Day to Remember. They had loads of like problems with their label, didn't they? Was it Victory Records? Or I can't remember what their label was, but I remember they just there was so much stuff about their older albums. I can't remember what it was though. But big labels can be really dodgy.
Yeah, they can. So you have to be very careful, and you know, you have to sign a contract with these people, and a lot of it is the wording and the language within a contract is made so you hopefully overlook something. So definitely get somebody who knows what they're doing to look at it.
Yeah,
that's what I'd say to anybody, because we found us, we've been so naive before in the past. We've signed things that been put in front of our noses, and we've just signed away because we were just like, oh my god, this is it, we're getting a great deal, we like finally made it. And then we've spent so much of the band's life trying to get back into a position where we can get back to square one, and we're still doing that. So just imagine like the magnitude of debt that we were in at some point, you know. But it's only because we've got such a passion for it and we lean on each other in the band, that it's the only reason we got out the other side, I think.
Yeah. But yeah, it definitely seems to be working, I think, by the looks of it. It's definitely doing its job, as much of a job as it gives you.
Cheers.
Just kind of obviously on the subject of other bands as well, is there any kind of stuff you've kind of been checking out or listening to recently? Any bands that you think have been kind of doing cool stuff at all?
Havelocke are doing some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, okay, that's a good one.
That's it. That's it. Let's shine the light on you guys. No one else. They don't deserve it.
Havelocke and Sleeps.
That's it. They're the two bands you should care about. I'm just kidding.
That's the place to be.
It is. Aaran Dagger obviously shot a video for those guys the other last month. Yeah, and it was crazy because like the week that we brought Nervous out, I had you guys bringing out When We Go, and then on the same day that we released Nervous, Aaran Dagger released the music video that I shot for them. So it was a very busy week.
Yeah.
So
the video looks sick, to be fair. I'm so glad that they got in contact with you to do a video, just because I knew how good it would look.
Yeah, it was something we were trying to make work for a long time, and then COVID got in the way for most part of it. But I'm glad we got to make it work. Yeah,
we're really good friends with them as well. It's cool to see things coming together like that.
Yeah, man. Definitely. I guess if I would just want to plug any more bands, Architect's new stuff, I don't know if you've heard that, but I really do think they're going from strength to strength, and we've been good friends with those guys for so many years. And yeah, I think the new direction that those guys are going in, it's so refreshing to hear. Not that they were getting boring by any means, they fucking are geniuses at writing songs, but it's just it's a palate refresher, you know. And I think the stuff that they're bringing out is so cool at the minute.
It's actually this is probably the first of their releases that I've really gotten into. And not that I thought they were bad or anything, but it just wasn't my kind of thing. But then I checked this out because I saw so many people raving about it, and it is actually amazing.
Yeah, it really is so good, man. So yeah, I'll plug those guys. They're my friends. Yeah. And new Beartooth actually as well. And new North Lane. It's all everyone's releasing bangers lately. So
everyone's had time to work on music.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like everybody's had a year to write songs or something.
That was really refreshing to talk about that mental health thing.
Yeah, man. You always feel good after you talk about it, I think.
Yeah, like, I just remember on that, when we played the Hawthorne Heights gig, when we finished, I went upstairs to our, like, back room where all our gear was, and I just had, like, a massive panic attack. And it was, like, definitely in the time where I was, like, having more of them. And I just came downstairs
Yeah.
and just didn't speak to anyone. But I like to think that like these days, if that happened, I would be more open with everyone in this chat basically. But it's strange. It always like that one always sticks in my mind because it happened after the show, not before the show, and it was so horrible because it was meant to be like what you were saying with Sean. It was meant to be like a moment of like euphoria or whatever, and it was just kind of not ruined, but like upsetting. And it's weird how they just flick in and out like that.
It is. It's hugely traumatic when an overwhelming thing comes over you like that, and it's not a very nice thing to experience. And it will just be because I've found, you know, like I've been going to therapy now for a couple of years, and it's helped me no end just to be able to, just to release the pressure valve, like every now and then, you know, or like periodically, you know, I go like every 2 weeks, and it's a lot to do with just trauma and just bottling up and just not being able to talk about things. They will have a delayed reaction, and the problem I was having was that I lost my mum in my early 20s, and I never dealt with it at all. And the way that I did deal with it was drink and drugs. And then when I stopped that, it was like I don't have my coping mechanism anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
And the thing that was keeping the cap on the bottle, it fell off, you know. And all these things came spilling out of me, and loads of weird shit, man. Like things pop, like everybody's got leftover childhood shit left with inside them, and you have to talk about it at some point, otherwise it's just going to eat you.
Yeah, it is mental. Like, I don't know, without getting like too heavy or whatever, like I was going through when I was in university, I went to therapy and stuff like that. And then you just like start talking about these things and you don't even realize that that's what's like in your mind. And like, what am I doing even thinking about these? But you've just got to deal with it and get on with it.
Definitely, yeah. And I think therapy should be something everybody does. I think it should be. It should be a regular thing for everybody, and I think it's something that's so stigmatized, especially in the UK, because people, if you say you go to therapy to somebody, I think their initial reaction is like, "Well, what's wrong with you?"
Yeah.
But and the answer would be the same things that are wrong with you, and do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And and I remember going to my therapist and like, you know, going through a period of feeling really good and saying like, you know, I think I might be wasting your time now because I don't know if there's anything wrong with me anymore. And I think going while you are is just as important as going. Why should you wait for a breakdown to go and talk to somebody about things? And yeah, so like I know now it's just a regular part of my life, and I would advise anybody to do it because it's saved my life, guaranteed.
Yeah.
So there you go, just to get heavy again.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've had quite a relatively long and actually at times quite serious chat. So we're going to try and do something a bit more fun, which we're going to try and carry on for the rest of them when we have guests on the Havelockedown. We have got plans for some more guests coming up soon, which hopefully we'll announce in due time. So this is going to be the quick fire round. And you've basically just got to choose as quick as you can between the two options we give you. I think there's 10 questions.
Okay.
10. Are you ready? Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Let's go. Sonic or Mario?
Sonic.
Sweet or savory?
Savory.
Moto or Welcome Break?
Oh, that's a tough one. Welcome Break.
Would you rather be able to fly or breathe underwater?
Fly.
Pepsi or Coke? Coca-Cola.
Pepsi, newfound. Used to be Coke. Pepsi.
Oh, really? Oh, didn't expect that.
Whoever
Pepsi
wrote
Max,
put
specifically.
Chipsy with gravy, but I think chips with gravy or chips with curry.
Oh my god, that's very hard. I'd probably say curry.
Ooh. Bad
Sorry.
From Sheffield. Black nail polish or black eyeliner?
Black nail polish. Defo.
Black Parade or Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge?
3 Cheers.
And The Office or Parks and Recs?
The Office. The UK one, right?
No, US.
Yeah,
US.
Yeah,
the US is really good as well.
The US is better.
Wait, are you saying that the UK office is better than the US office, Aaron?
I I think so.
Okay, we're going to end the podcast now. Cheers, guys. Cheers,
We'll see you
bye.
next week.
I think the US office is amazing. It's completely different in it. Let's be honest. So I don't think they're comparable. But I'd probably, if I was to choose, I would say English office.
Okay. Wow.
That is a very unpopular opinion.
Is it?
Learn.
All right, is that it now? As our relationship like severed the ties.
No more music videos. Sorry.
Crazy how things change in a quick fire round.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
It can make or break your relationships.
And that
was almost like a speed dating thing, wasn't it?
it was, yeah. And you didn't and we're not going on a second date.
I failed. I still really love the US office, by the way. No? Still no? All right, I'll see you later.
No, we'll let you off. We'll let you off.
I think it's because we're all watching it currently. As
we
well.
are.
We're at different points.
Yeah, it's really good. But I'm a massive Ricky Gervais fan. So sorry.
All good. So yeah, that is going to be the end. Thank you so much for letting us talk to you, Aaron, for so long. We didn't realize how long we were going to be sat here for.
No, it's all good. When you get in a good flow, you don't want to disrupt it. I've had a really good time, so thank you for having me on.
Yeah.
Man,
thank you
pleasure.
everybody. Thank you everybody who's listened to this episode, and make sure you check out Aaron's or other video. Obviously, our videos that Aaron's done. Make sure you check out all the stuff Aaron's doing, all the sleep stuff.
Aaron has a website, right?
Yeah, amfilms.co. amfilms.co. All my best work is on there, and obviously, all the while she sleeps across all socials. That's the handle. So they're my two babies. So go check it out.
Yeah. And that's the Havelockedown. Thank you very much.
Nice.
And
Nice to see you.
bye.
Bye.
Cheers, guys. See you later.
Yes, thank you. Bye.